Did ancient humans really chase animals to death on foot? Studies show they did, and it worked. The reason it worked is the same reason you're the only mammal on Earth that can sweat through skin. That trade-off cost us our fur. Look around, every mammal you can name is covered in it. Dogs, cats, mice, bears, horses, chimps, and even your neighbor's hamster all wear thick coats every day. Then there's you, a pale, shivering, mostly bald primate who has to buy a jacket to survive October. So what happened? Why are we the naked ones? The answer isn't cold, it isn't warmth, not fashion. Here's the thing, when scientists say humans lost their fur, they don't actually mean we're totally smooth now. Run your finger down your arm right now. Feel that? Those tiny invisible hairs are called vellus hair. You're covered in them from your forehead to your ankles. What we lost isn't hair itself, something else. We lost the thick protective coat that keeps every other primate warm at night and shielded during day. So you're not really naked, you're wearing a coat so thin the world simply cannot see it anymore. And that alone tells you something strange is going on here. We're not totally alone in this though. Whales, dolphins, elephants, rhinos, hippos and pigs all live with barely any fur across their bodies too. But look at that list carefully. It's mostly enormous animals living in water or hot mud all day. Then, in the middle of the primate family tree, there's us, one naked ape surrounded by hairy cousins. That's the puzzle scientists have been chewing on for over 100 years because it truly isn't cosmetic. The answer rewrites how we became human. Turns out we never really lost hair, we just hid it. If you're curious about ancient humans, subscribe. I explain the stuff I find genuinely fascinating in plain language. Here's a number that breaks brains. Humans have the same hair follicle count per square inch as chimpanzees. Read that again. Follicle for follicle, you are as hairy as a chimp. The hairs are just miniaturized, thinner, shorter, almost transparent. So the real question isn't why we lost our hair, it's why our hair shrank. Until it stopped mattering entirely. That's a very different puzzle. Losing something sounds like an accident, a misfortune. Shrinking something on purpose, generation after generation, sounds like a plan. Or at least, natural selection pushing hard. And that pushing had to be brutal. Evolution doesn't casually remove insulation from a mammal living outside. Fur keeps you warm. Fur protects your skin from sun, wind, thorns and biting insects. Giving that up matters. It's like tearing the roof off your own house. Something in our environment made the roof more dangerous than the rain itself. Something made a chimp-style coat a liability so heavy that thinner-haired ancestors survived better. They reproduced more successfully than the fluffier ones. Over hundreds of thousands of years, that pressure shrank our fur down into near invisibility. The first popular answer to why this happened sounds obvious, almost intuitive, and it's wrong. For a long time there was a theory called the aquatic ape hypothesis. The pitch went something like this. Maybe our ancestors spent a stretch of time wading in shallow water, catching fish, evolving into semi-aquatic primates. Fur is heavy when it's wet. It slows you down. So the story said we eventually shed it, the way otters kept it and whales lost it, because water rewrote all the rules for us. It's a beautiful idea. It's also, according to most researchers, not what actually happened to our species. There's almost no fossil evidence for a wet phase of human evolution. Our anatomy doesn't match aquatic mammals. Our lungs, our fat, our diving reflex, none of it fits the aquatic ape story properly. Other early ideas didn't hold up. Some said we lost our fur because Africa was simply too hot. But here's the problem. Africa actually gets cold at night, especially out on the open savanna. A naked primate freezing in the dark isn't exactly a winning evolutionary design for early hominid survival. Others said maybe we shed our thick coats to fight off nasty parasites like ticks and lice. That helps a little, but plenty of hairy animals live with parasites and still manage completely fine. None of these stories on their own explains the sheer size of the change we actually see. Something much bigger had to be pushing us. Scientists needed a better mechanism, so they studied sweat glands. And what they found is honestly wild. Your skin is packed with millions of eccrine sweat glands. Somewhere between 2 and 5 million tiny glands producing watery, salty sweat all across your whole body. No other mammal on the entire planet has anything close to that many active cooling glands. A chimpanzee has just a fraction of what you have, and most of theirs don't really cool much. Dogs pant to cool down. Cats lick themselves. Horses sweat a little, but honestly, nothing like humans. Turns out, we are the sweat champions of the entire animal kingdom. Hands down, no contest. It's actually a superpower we forget we have because it just happens automatically every hot summer afternoon. Now think about what fur actually does to sweat. Fur traps heat. Fur blocks moving air completely. Fur soaks up moisture and holds it against your bare skin instead of letting it evaporate away. And evaporation is really the whole point of the entire cooling system your body relies on. When your sweat turns from liquid into vapor, it actually pulls heat right off your body. That's the trick. That's the engine. But the engine only works if sweat reaches the open air. Cover your skin in a thick fur coat and you've just insulated your own biological radiator. You'd overheat in maybe 10 minutes flat. Standing under that blazing African savanna afternoon sun. So the moment our ancestors started depending on sweat to survive, fur became a genuine problem. Fur went from useful warm clothing to basically a death sentence out on those open plains. Naked skin plus millions of sweat glands equals a walking, running, jogging biological cooling system. Nothing else on the entire planet can dump heat quite like a human being on a hot day. But cooling alone doesn't explain why the trade was worth it. Losing your coat is genuinely expensive. Sunburn, cold nights, every mosquito in the neighborhood inviting itself over for dinner. So what were ancestors doing? What made all that suffering worthwhile? Why shed heat so badly that being naked became the better option? For that answer, walk out onto the African savanna 2 million years ago. At high noon, sun overhead. Because that's where the story gets strange. Imagine you're an early human out on the open savanna. You're not the biggest thing out there. You don't have claws worth mentioning. Your teeth are laughable. Your top sprint speed is a joke. A house cat could outrun you easily. On paper, you're somebody's lunch. But you have one weapon almost nobody else has. You can keep going. And going. And going. In midday heat, when every furred predator lies panting in the shade, you can jog. Slowly. Steadily. Under the burning sun. 4 hours. This is called persistence hunting. It's exactly what it sounds like. You pick a target, usually a large antelope, something like a kudu or a wildebeest grazing nearby. You start walking and jogging after it. The animal sprints away fast. You keep coming. It sprints again. You keep coming. It sprints a third time. Here's the thing about antelopes and most large mammals. They cool down by panting, and they can't pant while galloping full speed across the open plains. So every sprint stores heat inside their body with no way to release it back into the air. After 30 minutes, they're staggering. After an hour, they're stumbling badly. The sun keeps beating down relentlessly. After 2 or 3 hours in the sun, they overheat, collapse, and lie down. You walk up, finish it. That's not a legend. Modern hunters from the Sun People in the Kalahari Desert still do this today. Researchers have followed them with cameras and stopwatches. A hunter jogs for hours in temperatures that would hospitalize tourists. And the antelope, faster in every burst, loses because it simply can't cool itself down under that relentless sun. The human doesn't need claws. The human doesn't need speed. The human has sweat, naked skin, and pure stubbornness. Scientists sometimes call humans the super predator, and it's not because of anything cool like fangs or venom, it's because of stamina. We evolved into a species that could run other animals to death using pure endurance. And you can't do that with fur. You can't do it while overheating. You can't do it while panting. You can only do it as a walking, upright, mostly hairless radiator with water and a long horizon ahead. Our ancestors traded their coats for the ability to hunt in the hottest hours, when everything else was exhausted. So nakedness wasn't a bug in the design, it was actually the weapon. But it came with a bill. Strip a mammal of its fur and drop it on the equator, and brand new problems immediately appear. The African sun is not gentle. Ultraviolet radiation cooks unprotected skin, and skin cancer becomes a very real risk. So natural selection had to patch the hole. It did this by cranking up melanin production inside the skin. Melanin is the pigment that absorbs UV radiation before it can damage the DNA inside your cells. Our earliest naked ancestors evolved dark, richly pigmented skin as built-in sunscreen against that relentless equatorial sun. That's why populations that stayed near the equator kept their dark skin through thousands of generations of selection. And populations that migrated into low-sun regions like Northern Europe slowly lost pigment to let in more vitamin D. Skin color in this story is basically a follow-up patch for the original fur update our ancestors received. Then there's the cold. If the desert cooked us, the nights froze us. Naked skin loses heat fast. This is where fire and clothing enter. Our ancestors used fire hundreds of thousands of years ago. Fire made cold nights survivable. It cooked our food too, which made calories much easier to extract. And eventually, we started wearing things. Animal skins, woven fibers, external fur we could take off in sunlight. We invented adjustable insulation. No other animal in history has ever managed that particular clever trick. Just us. And we know roughly when clothing showed up, thanks to lice. This is one of my favorite scientific tricks. Humans host two types of lice. Head lice live in your scalp. Body lice don't actually live on skin. They live in your clothes and only crawl onto your skin to feed. Clothes are their entire habitat. Bodylice could only have evolved after humans started wearing clothes, because without clothes they have no home. By comparing DNA of head lice and body lice, geneticists estimated when the two species finally split apart. They guessed humans started wearing clothes somewhere around 100 to 170,000 years ago. Lice DNA even tells us when we finally got dressed. Tiny parasites became our unlikely historical witnesses. So our ancestors spent hundreds of thousands of years naked and unarmored, sweating across the wide open plains. That was before they figured out how to sew a shirt. A long stretch of very brave nudity. Here's a fun leftover. Every so often you get goosebumps, cold air, scary movie, music that hits right. Tiny muscles under your skin, the arrector pili, yank each hair upright when triggered by cold or fear. In an animal with a real coat that puffs the fur into a thicker layer to trap warm air. Or it makes the animal look bigger to scare off a threat. In you, it does absolutely nothing. No fur to puff, just bumps. That reflex is a ghost, a leftover circuit from a former coat. It runs the same subroutine on hardware that no longer supports it. Every goosebump is a tiny fossil. We didn't lose all the hair though. We kept some patches, and it wasn't random at all. Scalp hair shields the brain from direct sun and slows heat loss from a very expensive organ. Eyebrows redirect sweat away from the eyes, so you can still see your target while you jog. Eyelashes flick dust away. Beards and body hair patterns show up at puberty, hinting at sexual selection. Those are signals of maturity that potential partners have paid attention to for a very long time. Every stubborn patch of hair on your body is either doing a job or advertising something important. That last part matters more than people think. Once humans developed self-awareness, we started forming opinions constantly. Our skin stopped being just a heat regulator. It became a canvas, a signal to other humans. Scars, tattoos, paint, jewelry, clothing choices, hairstyles, none of that is possible on a furry animal. A chimpanzee can't accessorize. You can. Losing our coat gave us a whole surface to communicate on. We've been decorating it ever since. Your naked body is basically a running engine wrapped in disguise. It's a screen you use to tell other humans exactly who you are, without saying a word. Let's pull back. What actually happened here? Natural selection didn't wake up one day and decide humans should be bald. Selection doesn't decide anything. It quietly rewards whatever works. And what worked on that hot ancient savanna was the marathoner. The individual who could jog a little longer, sweat a little more, survive further into the afternoon than the competition. Those individuals ate more meat, fed more children, passed on genes for thinner hair, more sweat glands, darker skin. The fluffier panting cousins didn't. Multiply that across 1,000 generations and you get the species reading this script. Nakedness isn't an accident, it isn't a mistake, it isn't nature forgetting to give us a coat. It's a specialization. Like a giraffe's neck for reaching high leaves or a bat's wing for flying at night. A specialization. Hairless skin is a specialization, cooling a body that runs long distances in heat. We are, biologically, long-distance predators. Everything else about us, the big brain, tools, language, cities, the internet, grew on top of that foundation. But the foundation is a naked ape jogging across a hot plain, patient enough to outlast an antelope. And we outsourced the fur we gave up. We turned to wool, cotton, fleece, down jackets, all of it. We didn't grow coats back. We started making them, taking them off when hot, putting them on when cold. Arguably even better than fur, because it's adjustable. A wolf can't take off its coat in July. You can. Clothing is the human version of hair, external and swappable, and we've iterated on it for 100,000 years. Every time you sweat through a shirt or get goosebumps at a scary scene, you're running ancient software. Software written for a body once covered in fur, running on a body that isn't. Old code, new hardware. What evolution chose back then still quietly runs us today, shaping how we sweat, shiver, and reach for jackets. Your daily life is layered on top of an ancient trade some ancestor made without ever knowing it. A bargain that swapped warmth for endurance and cover for cooling, and we're still living inside that deal. One weird question about hair rewires how you see people. The stranger on the bus, the crowd downtown. The players sprinting in a football match. You're watching a species of tropical marathon predators wearing borrowed fur. Fur they made in a factory. That's what we are underneath. Honestly, kind of beautiful once you see it. If you enjoyed pulling on this thread, subscribe. I make videos about strange stuff hiding inside ordinary bodies. There's more of it than one channel can hold, and the next weird body question is already waiting. Why do humans cry when we're sad, when almost no other animal produces emotional tears at all? That question is honestly stranger than it sounds, and it's waiting